Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now getting closer to the end of May of 2023, and that means only one thing, is that we are getting very close to Dave Filoni's new take on the Star Wars franchise with the upcoming Ahsoka Tano series, which, by the way, rest in peace to Ray Stevenson. We got some tragic news just yesterday about his passing in Italy. I don't know if you guys heard about it. I'm sure that you did, though. It really came across as a shocker. To be honest, at first I thought it was a hoax. I was really trying to find that out at first and what was going on with all of that. But it turns out that he did pass away and he's no longer with us. So, as I talked about on my Twitter, I think that we should all really pay attention to his performance, support it, talk about it once the actual show comes out, and really just celebrate his success with the Ahsoka series. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and without further ado, let's get right into the subject. Now, we know that Kathleen Kennedy has been really dealing with a lot of issues lately, not just with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, but also with Indiana Jones 5 and the Dial of Destiny. All three of these projects are, by the way, in danger of creating more backlash from both sides of the fandom. We know that just after the Cannes Film Festival that took place in France some time ago, a couple days ago, and post Film Festival, alright, we had a lot of negative reviews coming out, a lot of negative press talking about this movie, really not talking about it on a positive note. And so far, where it stands, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, and I know Rotten Tomatoes is not always the best thing to go by, but it gives you an idea, and it's currently sitting at 50-something%, which is pretty low, especially from critics who usually are supposed to say great things about major franchises like this. So anyways, moving on to the next big thing here is that with the current state of Indy 5 and Kathleen Kennedy's side of Star Wars that consists of the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, recent developments point to the beginning of the end for Kathleen Kennedy's time in Hollywood as a producer. Now, with Disney trying to shake off Kennedy that now relies on the success or failure of Indy 5, big-time studios have reportedly restricted Kathleen Kennedy. These companies consist of those like Universal, Warner Brothers, and even Columbia Pictures, and that's just for starters. The main factor falling into the restriction of Kathleen Kennedy in Hollywood has much to do with her understanding, and their understanding, that Indy 5 got negative press from reporters who were supposed to even provide positive reviews on their end for their careers. This is said to ensure that this film is not going to go down well, and many studios are keeping themselves from associating with Kathleen Kennedy when the time comes that she exits Lucasfilm. So let's just make things a little bit more apparent here before I get to the next big piece here, is that these big-time studios, Columbia Pictures, Universal, and others out there, they're beginning to pile up, and they are restricting Kathleen Kennedy from ever joining their studios. If she ever has, a moment in time where she wants to join those studios, they are not going to want to work with her for two major reasons. Number one, they finally realized what she did with Star Wars. Number two, now she's doing it again with Indiana Jones, and studios out there like Universal, Columbia, etc. are not going to deal with that ever. Ever, ever, ever. They don't want anything to do with somebody that's going to ruin a franchise or destroy a very valuable IP. They want nothing to do with somebody like that. Look what she did with Willow, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones, all within a, 6 to 7 year time span. And that's pretty bad when you think about it. That's probably the biggest failure in Hollywood that I could even think about right now. So, moving to the next big thing here is this. Now, we know that Kathleen Kennedy is attempting to create something very specific, and this has a lot to do with her own production studio. And she's doing this while she's hired at Disney and Lucasfilm, which is beyond crazy if you ask me, because this studio that she's building is said to be a competitor, eventually, against Star Wars, Trek, Dune, and everything sci-fi or space opera-esque, to really kind of create her own spin on really creating a sci-fi epic studio. So, with that being said, moving to the next thing. Now, though Kennedy is already creating her own production studio that is actually codenamed Starlight, and she has announced that she has no plans of retiring, if her studio does not come to pass, she will most certainly seek producing roles for many of the major studios, many of which now have restricted Kathleen Kennedy after the Indy 5 news. More and more studios are beginning to highlight her name, preventing her from becoming a part of their studios in the future when negotiations come up. This is all a response to Indy 5 and the current state of Star Wars after Hollywood is beginning to realize how she hurt two major franchises such as Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Kennedy is said to be fully aware of these restrictions via many of her contacts from Frank Marshall and his contacts, which is how they got the news, essentially. Disney is now in full panic mode on figuring out what to really do with her. Now look, I think that there's nothing to figure out, Disney. I think you just gotta get rid of her and call it a day. That's all there is to it. Look, you gotta be very bold at this point and very blunt. That's how it needs to be done. You just gotta get rid of her like the snap of a finger like that, and then your problems are solved. As long as you don't get somebody that's like a carbon copy of Kathleen Kennedy as a replacement, you're gonna be fine, you know? And that's why they have Dana Brunetti on standby. That's why they have Neil H. Moritz also waiting to become the new president of Lucasfilm. And on top of that list, we also have Simon Kinberg. Those are the three major players that are a part of the candidate list to take over Kennedy when her time comes, that she leaves Lucasfilm. Now, this is very bad because if you think about this, the fact that you have these major studios waking up and realizing how bad Kennedy really is, it just is confirming that the fans are right, that the community is right about where the common sense of Kathleen Kennedy is missing. And that's all fans really wanted on both sides of the fandom. Whether you're an Indiana Jones fan or a Star Wars fan, we all just wanted pure common sense. Good storytelling, good character development, and just great writing. You know, good dialogue. Little things like that that make a great movie or a great story, whatever have you, right? And so she failed to do that on numerous counts, and it's really catching up to her now. So, again, like I say, all these major studios, they're restricting her from ever getting hired in the future, and the fact that she's aware of this via Frank Marshall, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Frank Marshall is indeed the husband of Kathleen Kennedy. So I don't know if you guys really knew that, but he is the husband of Kathleen Kennedy, and he knows a lot of things that are going on with Universal, Columbia, and all these major studios because he is very much involved with the film industry because he's an American film producer and director and executive, etc., etc. So, anyways, we know that there's a lot of things going on here. The fact that, you know, Kathleen Kennedy is beginning to really meet the beginning of her end over at Lucasfilm, and quite frankly, very possibly her end in the film industry and, you know, Hollywood in general. Very possible. You know, I can see her maybe getting forced to retire once her time at Lucasfilm comes to an end. But anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon we hear them moans again.